All right, we want to welcome in our first guest. Joining us now is Dr. Tom Borelli. He is a contributor here at both Newsmax and the Conservative Review. Thank you. Good to see you again, Tom.
Great to be back.
So you've heard some of what we've been discussing. I want to go back to Dan Coats because I want Tom to weigh in on this.
I do too.
Do you think Dan Coats should have asked, or do you think he should have been told? Whose fault is it that he didn't know that Putin was going to be visiting here in the fall?
Well, obviously, we only can speculate because we're not on the inside. But I think taking a big picture view, President Trump is really a businessman, and he's used to being the CEO of making decisions very quick, and then people down the line will learn about what his decisions are. So, yeah, maybe the communication isn't as precise. But I think the really important news is, and I think Dr. Gina referred to it, is that President Trump has invited Mr. Putin to the United States, showing real leadership. A regular politician, after the media hammering an individual like President Trump was for the meeting in Helsinki, they would have ran away. And you kind of see that with the establishment Republicans. Too many establishment politicians, both sides, look at polls, worry about the media. President Trump has got his America First agenda. He's worried about Russia, so he's going to sit down and talk with Mr. Putin. I think that's a really good thing to do. I don't see any downside risk. I think that's going to wake up Germany that they need to pay their fair share into their defense budget as part of NATO. I think Germany needs to think twice about buying all that natural gas to send billions of dollars to Russia. So overall, again, I think President Trump is showing tremendous leadership, and he's ignoring all the left-wing media that hate him.
Tom, I don't think Trump has ever been held hostage by the media. And to that end, the White House is rejecting Putin's proposal to allow Mueller's investigators to question those 12 GRU operatives in exchange for allowing the GRU, the FSB, Russian intelligence and law enforcement services to question Americans. The White House, in a statement, I have the statement here, it said, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said the offer was sincere, but that the White House was no longer entertaining the idea. She says hopefully Putin will have the 12 indicted Russians come to the U.S. to prove their innocence. What do you make of this, Tom? Was this just a dog and pony show by Rosenstein to embarrass the president, to further the Russia collusion narrative with Mueller? Because they knew these guys were never going to see the inside of a U.S. courtroom.
To tell you the truth, John, I think the real indictment is against Rosenstein and Mr. Mueller, who's running that investigation. So far, what they have uncovered is things that we kind of already know. Okay, maybe we didn't know Manafort was cheating on his taxes, allegedly. But to indict 12 Russians, they know they're not going to come here. That's just a joke. But it's a way to try to justify what the 17, probably approaching $20 million investigation that, wait a minute, hold it, no collusion with President Trump or President Trump's staff. That's the real headline.
Dr. Borelli also, with this regarding Dan Coats, he warned that Americans may be focusing too much on Russia, blinding them to other more serious threats.
I'm concerned about a cyber 9/11.
What would that look like?
Well, let's say you shut down Wall Street for a week. What does that do to world markets and people's investments? What about an attack on the electric grid in New England in January that maybe is sophisticated enough to take it out for 3 days? How many people will die?
Dr. Borelli, is he right?
Well, certainly, I think cybersecurity represents a huge risk of cyber threats against the United States, and it is a huge risk, as he mentioned, of the power grid. I mean, if they hit, the power grid, it could be, for how long? It could be a really disaster. But again, I think at least we know this is going on. But remember, again, President Trump inherited a number of messes from former President Obama. Remember, China hackers got into the White House personnel records in 2015. Former President Obama knew about Russia meddling in the election. He did nothing. Susan Rice, his national security advisor, gave a stand-down order when they knew Russia was hacking into trying to interfere with the election. So again, it's another mess that President Trump has to deal with, but it does represent a very serious risk, and it really would be an act of war. Let's face it, if someone did that, the problem is trying to find out who did it. And again, that's why you really need to be talking to all our adversaries, whether it be North Korea, whether it be Russia, whether it be China. We need to bring all these people together so we at least have a talking relationship and let them know that we will draw a very red line in the sand if they dare do anything against our infrastructure.
Dr. Tom Borelli, as always, pleasure to have you here on the program.
Thanks, Tom.
Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.